Hey there. Imagine you're walking through a forest, carrying this massive bag of rocks. Every step feels harder than the last. Your back is aching, and you can barely breathe. Then, you see a wise old monk sitting under a tree. He looks at you with kind eyes and asks, "Why are you carrying so many stones?" And you say, "These are my burdens. I can't let them go. If I do, who will carry them?" The monk smiles and replies, "What if I told you that letting go wouldn't make you weaker but stronger? Try putting them down." So you set the bag down just for a moment, and suddenly your back straightens, your breath deepens, and you realize you didn't need to carry all that weight. This story is the perfect metaphor for life. The stones are our mental habits: overthinking, judging, clinging to things, dwelling on negativity, and constantly comparing ourselves to others. They feel like they define us or keep us safe, but really they're just weighing us down. Today, we're going to dive into Buddhist teachings to explore how letting go of these habits can unlock freedom, peace, and clarity in your life. And don't worry, this isn't just going to be a lecture. You'll hear powerful stories, learn practical steps, and hopefully feel inspired to make some changes. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's start this journey together. Overthinking. It's like a storm cloud in your mind. You're trying to make a decision, but instead of clarity, you get this endless loop of what-ifs. Sound familiar? In Buddhist teachings, this is called the monkey mind. It's that restless chatter jumping from one worry to another. And let me tell you, it's exhausting. Here's a story the Buddha shared. A student asked him, "Why do I feel so much pain and suffering?" The Buddha replied, "Imagine being struck by an arrow. It hurts, right?" The student nodded. "Now imagine being struck by a second arrow, right in the same spot. Wouldn't that hurt even more?" The student winced. The Buddha said, "The first arrow is life itself, things we can't control, like setbacks or challenges. The second arrow is the suffering we create by overthinking, obsessing, or resisting reality." Think about it. How often do we shoot ourselves with that second arrow? Maybe you made a mistake at work, and instead of moving on, you replay it in your head all night. Or you're stuck in traffic, and you let it ruin your whole day. That's the second arrow. But here's the good news. Overthinking is a habit, and like any habit, it can be unlearned. Step 1. Anchor yourself in the present. When your mind spirals, focus on your breath. Take a deep inhale, count to 4, and exhale slowly. This simple act interrupts the cycle. Step 2. Set a worry window. Give yourself 10 minutes a day to think about whatever's bugging you. Write it down, then close the journal and move on. Step 3. Ask better questions. Instead of, "What if everything goes wrong?" Try, "What's the worst that could happen, and can I handle it?" Spoiler alert, the answer is usually yes. Imagine how much lighter you'd feel if you let go of overthinking. Your mind would be like a clear sky, open and full of possibilities. Judgment. It's like looking through a dirty mirror. You're not seeing things as they are. You're seeing them through your own smudges of bias, insecurity, or pride. Here's a story about judgment. There was a young monk known for his strict discipline. One day, he saw an older monk wearing a tattered robe. He thought, "How careless, how disrespectful." So he confronted him. The older monk smiled and said, "Brother, my robe got dirty when I helped a traveler who had fallen into the mud. But tell me, is it my robe that's dirty, or is it your view of me?" Oof, that one stings, doesn't it? Judgment often reveals more about us than the person we're judging. And in today's world, judgment is everywhere. On social media, in conversations, and worst of all, in our own minds. But here's the thing. Judgment doesn't make you stronger or smarter. It just weighs you down. So, how do we quit this habit? Step 1. Pause and reflect. When you catch yourself judging, ask, "What does this say about me?" Step 2. Replace criticism with curiosity. Instead of thinking, "Why are they like that?" Ask, "What might they be going through?" Step 3. Be kinder to yourself. Self-judgment is the harshest of all. Start replacing negative self-talk with affirmations like, "I'm doing my best." Quitting judgment doesn't mean ignoring differences. It means approaching them with understanding instead of condemnation. And trust me, it's a game changer for your peace of mind. Attachment. It's the sneakiest habit of all because it often feels like love or security. But here's the truth. Attachment isn't about holding on. It's about clinging to things as if they're permanent when, in reality, everything is fleeting. Let me share the Buddha's parable of the raft. A man needed to cross a river, so he built a raft. It carried him safely to the other side. But once across, he thought, "This raft saved my life. I should carry it everywhere." So he hoisted it onto his back and trudged on. The Buddha asked, "Is the man wise to carry the raft now?" The disciples said, "No, Lord." The raft was useful, but it's no longer needed. Exactly. We all have rafts, things that served us once but now weigh us down. Attachment can be to material things, relationships, or even beliefs. But the reality is, everything changes. Possessions break, relationships evolve, and ideas shift. Holding on too tightly only leads to fear and pain. So, how do we let go? Step 1. Practice gratitude. Instead of clinging, appreciate what you have right now. Step 2. Meditate on impermanence. Visualize life as a river, constantly flowing and changing. Step 3. Declutter. Let go of items or ideas that no longer serve you. It's liberating. When you quit attachment, you're not losing anything. You're making space for freedom and joy. Let's talk about negativity, the silent thief that sneaks into our minds and takes over without us even realizing it. It starts small, maybe a complaint about the weather or a grumble about traffic, but it grows quickly, choking out joy and gratitude like weeds in a garden. In Buddhist teachings, negativity is often linked to dukkha, a term that translates to dissatisfaction, suffering, or unease. Dukkha arises when we resist reality as it is. And let's be honest, how often do we do that? We complain about what we don't have, resist what we don't like, and obsess over what's wrong. Negativity doesn't just affect our mood. It affects our relationships, our health, and our ability to find peace. The good news? Like any habit, negativity can be unlearned. There's a famous Buddhist story about negativity that I absolutely love. A young monk joined a monastery, filled with high hopes of finding peace and enlightenment. But soon he began to complain. The food was too plain, the temple too cold, the prayers too long. He even started finding fault in the other monks, criticizing their habits and actions. The head monk, noticing this pattern, decided to teach him a lesson. One day, he gave the young monk a handful of salt and said, "Mix this into a glass of water and drink it." The young monk did as he was told, but immediately spat it out. "It's too salty," he exclaimed. The head monk then took him to a nearby lake and said, "Take the same handful of salt and throw it into the lake. Now drink from the lake." The young monk bent down, took a sip, and said, "It's fresh and cool." The head monk smiled and explained, "The salt is like your negativity. When your mind is small, even a little negativity can overwhelm it. But when your mind is vast, like the lake, the same negativity becomes insignificant. Expand your mind, and your suffering will diminish." Negativity is like that salt. It doesn't just make life harder, it taints everything. Think about the last time you were stuck in a cycle of complaining. Did it solve the problem? Or did it leave you feeling even more drained and frustrated? Here's the thing. Negativity narrows your perspective. It's like looking at the world through a tiny keyhole. You only see what's wrong, what's missing, what's broken. Over time, this habit becomes a lens through which you see everything, including yourself. In today's world, negativity is everywhere. Social media thrives on outrage, and conversations often revolve around complaints about work, politics, or even the little things like the Wi-Fi being too slow. While it's natural to feel dissatisfied at times, constantly feeding into negativity deepens our suffering. Studies have shown that chronic complaining rewires your brain to focus on problems. It's like your mind becomes a magnet for negativity. This doesn't just affect your mood, it affects your health. Chronic negativity has been linked to higher stress levels, weakened immune systems, and even a shorter lifespan. And then there's the impact on relationships. Negativity is contagious. Have you ever been around someone who complains constantly? It drains your energy, right? Now imagine how it feels to be that person. Negativity pushes people away and creates a cycle of loneliness and dissatisfaction. Now, picture this. What if you could let go of negativity? Imagine waking up in the morning and instead of grumbling about what you don't have, feeling gratitude for what you do have. Imagine facing challenges not with frustration but with curiosity, asking, "What can I learn from this?" Quitting negativity doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything's perfect. It means changing your perspective. It means focusing on solutions, gratitude, and growth. Gratitude is the antidote to negativity. Every morning or evening, take a moment to list 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand. It could be as simple as a warm cup of tea, a kind word from a friend, or the sound of rain. Over time, this practice rewires your brain to notice the positive. Example: keep a gratitude journal by your bedside and write in it before you sleep. Reflect on the little joys that made your day better. Reframe your thoughts. When you catch yourself complaining, pause and ask, "What's one good thing about this situation? How can I grow from this challenge?" Reframing shifts your focus from problems to possibilities. For example, if you're stuck in traffic, instead of thinking, "This is the worst," try, "This gives me time to listen to my favorite podcast." Pay attention to the conversations, media, and environments you engage with. Are they filled with negativity? If so, take steps to reduce your exposure. Example: unfollow accounts on social media that thrive on drama. Spend less time with people who constantly complain. Instead, seek out uplifting and inspiring content. Adopt the No Complaints Challenge. Commit to going 24 hours without complaining. If you catch yourself slipping, start over. This exercise builds awareness and helps you break the habit of negativity. Over time, you'll find it easier to focus on constructive solutions. Complaints often arise from frustration over things we can't change. Instead of dwelling on the uncontrollable, direct your energy toward actions within your power. This mindset shift turns a frustration into empowerment. Example: instead of complaining about the weather, think about how you can make your day enjoyable despite it. expand your mind, free your heart. When you quit negativity, it's like expanding your mind from a glass to a lake. Challenges no longer feel overwhelming, and you find it easier to appreciate the beauty in life, even during difficult times. Take a moment to reflect. What's one thing you often complain about? Is it something you can change? If not, what would happen if you simply let it go? By choosing gratitude over grumbling and solutions over complaints, you free your mind from the weight of negativity. Life may not always be perfect, but with the right perspective, it can always be meaningful. All right, let's talk about overthinking. Raise your hand if you've ever been stuck in your head, playing out every possible scenario of something that hasn't even happened yet. Don't worry, my hand's up too. Overthinking is like being caught in a hamster wheel. It feels like you're moving, but you're not getting anywhere. Your mind just keeps spinning, going over the same worries, doubts, and fears. And let's be real, it's exhausting. In Buddhism, overthinking is often referred to as the monkey mind. Picture a monkey swinging from branch to branch, never sitting still, always chattering. That's what our minds do when we overthink. Instead of finding clarity, we get tangled up in doubt and fear. There's a powerful Buddhist story that explains overthinking perfectly. A student once asked the Buddha, "Why do I feel so much pain and suffering in my life?" The Buddha replied, "Imagine you're walking through the forest and you get struck by an arrow. It hurts, right?" The student nodded. "Now imagine being struck by a second arrow, right in the same spot. Wouldn't that hurt even more?" The student winced at the thought. The Buddha explained, "The first arrow is life itself. Things we can't control, like challenges, setbacks, or difficult situations. But the second arrow is the suffering we create for ourselves by overthinking, obsessing, or resisting reality. Most of our pain comes not from the first arrow, but from the second." Let that sink in for a moment. Overthinking is the second arrow. It's the one we fire at ourselves, making the situation worse. How overthinking shows up in our lives. Now, let's bring this closer to home. Think about the last time you faced a tough decision. Maybe it was about your career, your relationships, or your health. Did you find yourself replaying every possible scenario? Did you worry about what might go wrong? Did you doubt your ability to make the right choice? Overthinking often comes from fear. Fear of failure, fear of making mistakes, fear of judgment. But here's the ironic part. The more you overthink, the harder it is to make a decision. Your mind becomes so cluttered with what-ifs that you can't see the simplest answer right in front of you. And here's where science backs this up. Studies show that chronic overthinking leads to decision fatigue. You're so mentally drained from thinking that you can't make a clear choice. Stress and anxiety. Your mind is stuck in overdrive, and your body responds with tension and worry. Mental health struggles. Prolonged overthinking can even lead to depression. It's like trying to untangle a knot by pulling every thread at once. You just make the mess worse. Now, let's flip the script. Imagine how much lighter your mind would feel if you could stop overthinking. Picture approaching challenges with calm and clarity instead of stress and doubt. How freeing would that be? Here's the good news. Overthinking is a habit, and like any habit, it can be unlearned. Anchor yourself in the present moment. The first step is mindfulness. When your thoughts start to spiral, gently bring your attention back to the present moment. One of the simplest ways to do this is to focus on your breath. Try this with me. Take a deep breath in, counting to 4. Hold it for a moment, then exhale slowly. Do it again. Feel your shoulders relax and your mind settle. This small act can interrupt the cycle of overthinking and ground you in the now. Example: the next time you're stuck in your head, pause and take 3 mindful breaths. You'll be amazed at how much clarity that brings. Set boundaries for rumination. Ever notice how overthinking can take over your entire day? It's like that one annoying song that gets stuck in your head. To stop this, give yourself a worry window. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes each day to think about whatever's bothering you. Write your thoughts down if it helps. But when the time's up, close the journal and commit to letting go for the rest of the day. Example: if you're stressing about an upcoming meeting, allow yourself 10 minutes in the morning to plan or vent. Then, move on to other tasks. Ask yourself the right questions. Overthinking loves to feed on worst-case scenarios. You know the drill. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if everything goes wrong? But here's the thing. Those questions don't help. They just fuel your anxiety. Instead, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? If that happens, can I handle it? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. This shift in perspective turns fear into empowerment. Example: let's say you're nervous about giving a presentation. Instead of thinking, what if I mess up? Ask, what's the worst that could happen? Maybe you stumble over a word. Can you handle that? Absolutely. Let me share a quick story. A friend of mine used to agonize over every decision, from what to wear to major career moves. It got so bad that even picking a restaurant felt overwhelming. But then she started practicing mindfulness and using a worry journal. She gave herself permission to plan and stress, but only within a set time frame. Within weeks, she noticed a difference. Decisions became easier, and she stopped second-guessing herself so much. She told me, I didn't realize how much energy I was wasting on thoughts that didn't serve me. Imagine your mind as a clear, blue sky. Thoughts are like clouds. They come and go, but they don't have to block the sun. When you stop holding on to every cloud, you make space for clarity and possibility. Take a moment to reflect. What's one situation in your life where you've been overthinking? What's one small step you can take today to loosen the grip of those thoughts? Write it down or hold it in your heart as a commitment to yourself. Quitting overthinking isn't easy. It takes practice and patience. But it's one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself. By letting go of the second arrow, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering and open the door to peace and clarity. And remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Freedom begins with a single step. So, take that step today. I believe in you. Let's talk about judgment. It's something we all do, often without even realizing it. You see someone walking down the street, and your mind instantly forms an opinion about them, their clothes, their behavior, their choices. Or maybe you're scrolling through social media thinking, why would they post that? But here's the thing. Judgment is like looking through a dirty mirror. You're not seeing the world or people as they really are. You're seeing them through the stains of your own biases, insecurities, and assumptions. In Buddhist teachings, judgment is considered one of the barriers to clarity and peace. It narrows our perspective, creating division and misunderstanding, not just with others, but within ourselves. Let me share a story that captures the nature of judgment beautifully. There was a young monk known for his strict discipline. He prided himself on following every rule to the letter and expected the same from others. One day, while walking through the monastery, he noticed an older monk wearing a tattered, stained robe. The young monk frowned and thought, "How careless, how disrespectful to wear something so unkempt in a sacred place." Unable to hold back, he confronted the older monk. "Why don't you take better care of your robe? It's filthy," he said sharply. The older monk smiled gently and replied, "Brother, my robe became dirty when I stopped to help a traveler who had fallen into the mud. But tell me, is it my robe that is dirty, or is it your view of me?" Ooh, that one hits hard, doesn't it? The young monk realized in that moment that his judgment revealed more about his own pride and impatience than about the older monk's actions. This story shows how judgment is often a reflection of what's happening inside us. It's not about the other person. It's about our own thoughts, fears, and biases. Judgment is sneaky. It feels like a quick reaction, but it has a way of taking over our thoughts and shaping how we see the world. Let's start with judgment of others. Maybe you see someone who looks different, or acts in a way you don't understand, and your mind fills in the blanks with assumptions. On social media, it's easy to judge people's curated lives, thinking, "Why do they have that? And I don't." Even with friends or family, you might find yourself criticizing their choices, thinking, "If only they'd listen to me, their life would be better." But judgment doesn't stop there. Some of the harshest judgment is the kind we direct at ourselves. "I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. Why can't I get it together like everyone else?" This constant stream of criticism creates stress, self-doubt, and unhappiness. It's like carrying an invisible weight that drags you down every day. The difference between judgment and discernment. Now, you might be wondering, does quitting judgment mean I should never evaluate anything? Not at all. There's a big difference between judgment and discernment. Discernment is thoughtful. It seeks understanding and truth. It's about recognizing what's helpful, healthy, or aligned with your values. Judgment, on the other hand, is reactive. It often comes with condemnation or comparison, and it's fueled by fear or insecurity. For example, if you're discerning, you might think, "This person's behavior is different from mine. I wonder why they do that." But if you're judging, you might think, "They're so wrong for doing that. I would never." Discernment opens the door to connection and understanding. Judgment slams it shut. Now, picture a life where you let go of judgment. Imagine meeting people without assumptions clouding your view. Imagine looking in the mirror and seeing yourself with kindness instead of criticism. When you quit judgment, you create space for curiosity, compassion, and clarity. You start seeing the world and yourself as you truly are, not as you fear or assume. Pause and reflect. The next time you catch yourself judging someone, pause. Ask yourself, what is this judgment based on? Does it reveal something about my own fears or biases? This moment of reflection can be eye-opening. Often, you'll find that the judgment has more to do with your own insecurities than the other person. Example, you might judge someone for being loud in public, but when you pause, you realize it's because you've been taught to suppress your own voice. Replace criticism with curiosity. Instead of jumping to conclusions, approach people and situations with a sense of curiosity. Ask yourself, what might this person be going through? Example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of thinking, what a jerk, try thinking, maybe they're having a tough day. This small shift opens the door to empathy and understanding. Pay close attention to how you speak to yourself. Are your inner thoughts filled with criticism and harshness? If so, start replacing those judgments with affirmations. Example: instead of saying, "I'm such a failure," try saying, "I'm doing my best," and that's enough. The kindness you show yourself will naturally extend to others. Loving kindness meditation is a powerful way to dissolve judgment. Spend a few minutes each day silently sending goodwill to yourself and others. Repeat phrases like, "May I be happy," "May I be free from suffering," "May others be happy," "May they be free from suffering." Over time, this practice softens your heart and reduces the harshness of judgment. Let me tell you about a friend of mine who struggled with self-judgment. She was constantly comparing herself to others, thinking, "Why can't I be as successful or confident as them?" One day, she started a gratitude journal, but with a twist. Instead of listing things she was grateful for in general, she focused on what she appreciated about herself. At first, it felt uncomfortable, but over time, she noticed a shift. The harsh inner critic quieted, and she began seeing herself and others with more compassion. When you let go of judgment, you don't lose anything. Instead, you gain a lighter heart, clearer mind, and deeper connections. Take a moment to reflect. Who or what have you been judging lately? What would happen if, instead of judging, you chose to understand? By letting go of judgment, you free yourself to experience life as it truly is, not filtered through criticism or bias. Judgment is like a dirty mirror. When you clean it, you see things clearly, not just the world around you, but also yourself. And when you see clearly, you can live fully, with compassion, understanding, and peace. Let's take that first step together. Start small. Pause, reflect, and watch how your perspective shifts. Let's dive into a big one: attachment. At first glance, attachment can seem like a good thing. We might think it's what binds us to the people we love, the goals we strive for, or the things that bring us comfort. But in Buddhist teachings, attachment isn't about connection, it's about clinging. And that clinging? It's a major source of suffering. Attachment is like holding sand in your hand. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. And yet, we all do it, clinging to relationships, possessions, or even ideas, believing they'll bring us happiness or security. But here's the hard truth. Everything is impermanent. Life changes, people grow, and things break. When we cling to what's temporary, we set ourselves up for disappointment and pain. The Buddha shared a beautiful story to explain attachment. A man needed to cross a wide, dangerous river. After much effort, he built a raft from branches and vines. The raft carried him safely to the other side. Once across, he thought, "This raft saved my life. I should carry it with me wherever I go." So, he hoisted the heavy raft onto his back and began walking through the forest. The Buddha asked his disciples, "Is this man wise to carry the raft now that it has served its purpose?" The disciples replied, "No, Lord. The raft was useful for crossing the river, but it is no longer needed." The Buddha explained, "Just as the man should leave the raft behind, we too must let go of attachments once they no longer serve us. Carrying them only creates unnecessary suffering." This story is such a powerful reminder. Attachments often start as something useful or even beautiful. But when we hold on to them too tightly, they become burdens. Let's bring this idea into everyday life. Attachment can show up in so many ways. We cling to items, cars, clothes, gadgets, because they make us feel successful or secure. But when those things break, get outdated, or are lost, we feel devastated. Example: have you ever had a phone break and felt like the world was ending? That's attachment. Relationships. We hold on to people, sometimes to the point of fearing their loss or trying to control them. We confuse attachment with love, but true love is freeing, not clinging. Example: think about a time you worried endlessly about losing someone's affection. Did that fear bring you closer, or did it create distance, beliefs, and ideas? We cling to our opinions, identities, or ways of doing things, even when they limit our growth. Example: ever been in an argument where you couldn't let go of needing to be right? That's attachment to ego. At its core, attachment arises from the illusion that we can control or own something permanently. But life is impermanent. The more we resist that truth, the more we suffer. In Buddhism, there's a concept called samsara, the endless cycle of craving, clinging, and suffering. Here's how it works. We crave something, thinking it'll make us happy. We get it, and for a moment, we feel satisfied. But then the satisfaction fades, and we crave something else. It's like chasing a mirage. No matter how much you grasp, true contentment remains out of reach. Now, let's flip the script. Imagine living without the constant fear of losing what you have. Imagine appreciating relationships without clinging, or enjoying possessions without letting them define you. When you let go of attachment, you don't stop loving or caring. In fact, you love more deeply, because your love isn't tied to fear or control. You experience life fully, moment by moment, without the weight of clinging. Instead of clinging to what you have, learn to appreciate it while it's here. Gratitude shifts your focus from fear of loss to joy in the moment. Example: when spending time with a loved one, remind yourself, "I'm grateful for this moment." This simple thought can transform how you experience relationships. Meditate on impermanence. In Buddhism, reflecting on anicca, impermanence, is a key practice. Visualize how everything in life flows like a river, constantly changing. This helps you embrace change rather than resist it. Example: spend a few minutes each day meditating on how your emotions, possessions, and even your body are temporary. This isn't meant to be sad, it's freeing. Declutter your life. Both physical and emotional clutter create attachment. Start small. Donate items you no longer use. Journal to release unresolved feelings or outdated ideas. Example: have a declutter day where you let go of one thing that no longer serves you, whether it's an old shirt or a grudge you've been holding on to. Focus on experiences, not things. Material possessions are impermanent, but experiences create memories that last. Instead of chasing the latest gadgets, invest in meaningful moments with people you care about. Example: instead of buying a new phone, use that money to plan a weekend trip with a friend. Detach with compassion. If a relationship or situation no longer serves you, it's okay to let go. Detachment doesn't mean shutting your heart. It means allowing yourself and others the freedom to grow. Example: if you're holding on to a toxic relationship out of fear, consider what letting go could open up for both of you. Real-life example of overcoming attachment. Let me share a story about a friend of mine. She had a favorite piece of jewelry, a necklace her grandmother gave her. One day, she lost it, and she was devastated. But through meditation and reflecting on impermanence, she realized something. Her grandmother's love wasn't tied to the necklace. It lived in her memories, her heart, and her actions. This realization didn't erase the sadness, but it did bring her peace. She let go of the attachment to the physical object and focused on cherishing the love it symbolized. When you quit attachment, you stop clinging to what's temporary and start embracing what's eternal. Love, gratitude, and the present moment. Take a moment to reflect. What's one thing you're holding on to too tightly? How would your life change if you let it go? By releasing attachment, you make space for freedom, peace, and joy. Attachment is the illusion of permanence. But when you let go, you don't lose. You gain. You gain clarity, lightness, and the ability to truly live in the moment. So, take a deep breath. Release the raft you've been carrying, and step forward, free to enjoy the journey ahead. All right, let's talk about comparison. You know that little voice in your head that says, "Why don't I have what they have? Why am I not as successful, smart, or attractive as them?" Yeah, that voice. Comparison is something we all do, and in today's world of social media and curated perfection, it's become second nature. But here's the truth. Comparison is a thief. It steals your joy, breeds insecurity, and distracts you from appreciating your unique path. In Buddhism, comparison is linked to envy and attachment. These habits arise when we measure our worth by what others have or do. But the Buddha taught that true happiness doesn't come from looking outward. It comes from looking inward, finding contentment within ourselves. The Buddha shared a powerful story about comparison. One day, a disciple came to him, feeling deeply unworthy. He said, "Master, when I see others succeeding, I feel small and insignificant. Why do I feel this way?" The Buddha led the disciple to a lotus pond. "Do you see these flowers?" he asked. The disciple nodded. The Buddha continued, "Some lotuses rise above the water, others bloom just below the surface, and some are still buds. Each grows at its own pace, under its own circumstances. Yet all are beautiful in their way." He added, "Your path is like the lotus. Comparing yourself to others blinds you to your own growth. Trust that you too will bloom in your time." This story is a gentle reminder that everyone's journey is different. Some people's successes might be visible now, while yours may still be unfolding. And that's okay. Growth isn't a race, it's a personal journey. How comparison shows up in our lives. Let's break this down into real-life scenarios. On social media, you're scrolling through Instagram, and you see someone's vacation photos. Suddenly, your cozy weekend at home feels dull. Or you see someone's new car, and your perfectly fine ride seems inadequate. Social media is a highlight reel, not real life. But when we compare, we forget that. In relationships. Maybe you compare your relationship to others. Why aren't we as happy as them? Why don't we go on romantic getaways like they do? But what you see on the surface rarely reflects the whole story. At work or school. You see a coworker getting a promotion or a classmate acing an exam, and you think, "Why can't I be as successful as them?" But you don't see the late nights they put in or the struggles they've faced. The harmful effects of comparison doesn't just steal joy, it creates a ripple effect of negativity. Insecurity. You start doubting your own abilities or worth. Resentment. You feel envy toward others, damaging relationships and preventing connection. Paralysis. Instead of focusing on your goals, you get stuck in a loop of, "I'll never be good enough." Comparison also fuels dukkha. The dissatisfaction that Buddhism teaches arises from craving and clinging. When we constantly chase what others have, we forget to appreciate what we already possess. Now, picture this. What if you stopped measuring yourself against others? Imagine waking up and focusing only on your own growth, celebrating your progress without worrying about anyone else's path. When you quit comparison, you reclaim your peace of mind. You free yourself to enjoy your journey, knowing that your value isn't tied to someone else's success. Practical steps to quit comparison. Shift your attention from what others are doing to what you are doing. Regularly ask yourself, what have I achieved this week? What small step can I take toward my goals today? Celebrate your wins, no matter how small. Example: if you're learning a new skill, track your progress. Even tiny improvements are worth celebrating. Limit social media exposure. Social media can be a comparison trap. Set boundaries to protect your mental health. Limit screen time. Unfollow accounts that make you feel inadequate. Follow content that inspires growth and positivity. Example: if you find yourself comparing your life to travel influencers, try following accounts that focus on self-improvement or mindfulness instead. Practice gratitude for what you have. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you already have. Every evening, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They can be as simple as a good meal, a kind word, or a moment of laughter. Example: instead of thinking, I wish I had a bigger house, think, I'm grateful for the cozy space I call home. Replace envy with admiration. When you notice yourself feeling envious, transform that emotion into inspiration. Instead of thinking, why can't I have that? Ask, what can I learn from this person's success? Example: if a coworker gets promoted, admire their dedication and ask yourself how you can grow in your own role. Meditate on self-acceptance. Spend a few minutes daily repeating affirmations like, I am enough as I am. My journey is unfolding perfectly. I have everything I need to grow. These affirmations help reframe your mindset, replacing comparison with confidence. Let me share a story about a friend of mine. She was constantly comparing herself to others, especially on social media. She'd see someone post about their new job or engagement and feel like she was falling behind. One day, she decided to take a break from social media. During that time, she focused on her own goals and started a gratitude journal. After a few weeks, she noticed a huge shift. Instead of feeling envious, she felt inspired. She realized that her journey was unique and didn't need to match anyone else's. When you let go of comparison, you don't lose anything. You gain everything. You gain peace, self-acceptance, and the ability to appreciate your own growth. Take a moment to reflect. When was the last time you compared yourself to someone? How did it make you feel? What would happen if, instead of comparing, you focused on your journey? Comparison is the thief of joy, but you don't have to let it steal from you anymore. Remember the lotus pond. Each flower blooms at its own pace, under its own circumstances. And so do you. Your journey is yours alone. Celebrate it, cherish it, and trust that you'll bloom in your own time. Take that first step today. Focus on your growth, practice gratitude, and let go of the habit of comparison. You are enough, just as you are.